Well, this week in the Smyth and Helwys formation series, we're going to complete our unit on After This Life. And this week, the title of our lesson is The Water of Life, and the central question is, what comfort do I find in God? John in Revelations is writing to suffering Christians who are being persecuted by the Roman Empire late in the first century. Isaiah wrote to the exiles in Babylon hundreds of years earlier who were also suffering and disillusioned. Today, we still have examples of Christians who are suffering persecution in many parts of the world. But even ourselves, we too experience times of suffering, challenges, struggles, loss, sadness, and injustice. It is into this that John provides us a picture of hope that can sustain us during our most difficult times. I want to focus on the last three of our focal verses this week because I believe in these we get a beautiful picture of what awaits us in eternity. John gives us three very vibrant images. The first, in verses 15 and 16, and the one who is seated on the throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more and thirst no more. The sun will not strike them, nor any scorching heat. In this image, we see the idea that in heaven we will join Jesus in his tent. This reminds us of the tabernacle that housed God as the children of Israel journeyed through the wilderness during those 40 years. We can also go listen to the words of Isaiah, who spoke to the exiled Israelites in Babylon. Looking at Isaiah 49, chapter 10, they shall not hunger or thirst, neither scorching wind nor sun shall strike them down. Think about how much of our attention is spent in this lifetime avoiding hunger and thirst and exposure to the elements. Imagine not having to have those cares. We can also see these as metaphors for human ambition and the things that we occupy our minds with and the things that we use our time and invest our resources towards achieving, the things we strive for, long for, and covet. In the second image, in verse 17, we read, "For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to the springs of the water of life." In the second image, we have Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And it reminds us of Psalm 23, right? We also have the image of Jesus leading us towards the waters of life. We also saw that image back in Isaiah 49:10, where he said, "And by the springs of water he will guide them." For the people who lived in both Isaiah and John's time, the idea of living water was in contrast to still water that may have been stagnant. Water that bubbled up from a spring promised life. It created refreshment. It nourished. It revived. And so we can even think about Jesus talking to the woman at the well about water of life. And so we have the idea that the shepherd will lead us to that which sustains us. And finally, our third image, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. In the final image, we have the reality that we do shed tears in this lifetime. We lose loved ones. We get bad news from the doctor. Our bank account just doesn't seem to meet what our needs and expectations are. Um, our company chooses to downsize. Our children make decisions that sadden us. There are many reasons we shed tears in this life. And it says, and God will wipe away every tear from our eyes. The reality is we come even into eternity with the experience of tears. In heaven, God will wipe those tears from our eyes. No longer will we need to experience those things that bring us to tears. Judson Edwards, in the companion commentary to this week's lesson, pointed out two Bible verses that I want to close with that really spoke to me. One, 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul says, "If for this life only we had hoped in Christ, we are of all people most to be pitied." I read that as part of the joy of the Christian life is the promise of eternity. If the joy of the Christian life was only about here and now, about the kingdom on earth, how much less would would that be? And then I'm also reminded in Revelations 21:5, and the one who was seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." And he also said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." Jesus told John, "Write these words, for they are trustworthy and true." And that's a promise for you and I. So when we ask the question, what comfort do I find in God? The comfort of eternity, the comfort of knowing where we will end up brings a tremendous amount of peace and a sense of security to us in our lives today that allows us to really accept the joy of being part of the family of God, but also allows us to focus on sharing God's love and not being overly concerned about the challenges that we face in this lifetime. I hope you'll find a blessing in reading these verses this week as I have. I also hope you'll join me next week as we start a new unit. Next month, we'll be looking at the Christmas story, and we'll be looking at it through the eyes of Luke and some of the minor characters that make up parts, key parts of the Christmas story. So until then, I hope you have a great week. God bless you, and we'll see you again next time.